I really take pride in my accomplishments because there are things in my life that I've worked really, really hard to achieve, and when I achieve those successes, it fills me full of pride. But I think pride has this kind of negative vibe to it. People often see pride as like a negative attribute that you might have. So we have sayings like, something about downfall. Pride is, pride cometh before a fall, or something along those lines. So taking pride in your accomplishments can sometimes feel really good, and it can sometimes feel really bad because of the way you think about pride. And I live in a country in Norway where pride is often kind of packed up into what they call janteloven, which is Jante's law, which basically sets down these kind of principles of life, and it says, you shouldn't be proud of your work. I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting what janteloven is, but it basically says that you should be humble. Let me just put it that way. And humbleness is a very, very valuable attribute in and of itself. But when it comes to accomplishments, and it comes to taking pride in those accomplishments, I think we have to temper somewhere in the middle, where it's not being proudful, not being prideful, and it's not at the same time being completely diminished or repressed. We have to find a middle ground where we can say, yes, I've achieved something, and that really matters to me, and maybe it matters to others too. And I think that can be really, really a critical aspect of what it means to accomplish something. But I think when we're talking about accomplishments, it's also important to look at what meaning they have in your life. And so what I think about when I talk about my accomplishments and their meaning in my life is, to what extent do I, as a person, identify with those accomplishments? To what extent are those accomplishments so packed up in my identity and who I am, how I think about myself, that they're almost inseparable? And I want to challenge you to think differently about your accomplishments, because ultimately we are not our jobs. We are not our roles in our family. We are not our degrees. We are something else. And I think it's important for us to kind of realize that our identities are not the same as what we do or how we live or even where we live. And it's because all of those other things in our life, like it or not, are impermanent. Our houses can be destroyed. We can move to other places. Our families can fall apart, and we can lose our jobs. And so even though those things can be really devastating, if your identity is so closely packed up with those other things in your life, then not only will you experience the loss of those things, but you'll also experience an identity crisis, because you'll be looking at yourself and saying, I am not a teacher, so now who am I? Or I am not a husband or wife or father or mother or son or daughter. Who am I? Or I'm not a person who lives in that home any longer. I don't live in that neighborhood or on that street or in that community. Who am I? So trying to recognize that all the things in our life are impermanent. Fundamentally, they can be taken away from us. And trying to acknowledge that we are something greater than those things that are in our life can be really empowering. And it can really help us take our accomplishments and kind of separate them from who we are. And in doing so, we kind of separate that pridefulness, that kind of negative attribute of being too proud of our work, from that kind of over sense of humility, that kind of overly drawn out sense of humility. So I will ask you, who are you? Are you the place where you live? Are you your role in your family? Are you the work that you do? Or are you something greater?